What's up, guys? It's Jeremy, and you're listening to episode number 6 of Backstage Career, the podcast where I interview the people who are working behind the scenes with some of the biggest creators and entrepreneurs out there. In today's episode, I talked to Amanda Mcwright, who's the creative director for Jesse Itzler and his brands. When she was 21 years old, Amanda decided to take a leave of absence from college to explore her interests and her creativity a little more. That ultimately led to her landing an internship with Jesse Itzler, and moving in with him, his wife, and his family to document their lives for Jesse's social media. Since then, she's graduated from Positive Vibes Intern to creative director, and she's worked on a bunch of cool projects for him, as well as her own. And one of her personal projects include a clothing collaboration with Yes Theory, which launched at the end of last year. So we're going to talk about all of that. We talk about the strategies that Amanda used to connect with Jesse Itzler and Yes Theory. We talk about what it was like working with them and all of the lessons and personal transformations that she's gone through as a result. This was an amazing conversation. I know you're going to get some value out of it. Enjoy. So I guess what's your story? I know you have an awesome story of how you got the gig. Like back in the days, you sent him a DM, kind of didn't lead anywhere. Like, what was from there on, how did that develop into, you getting a job with him?
Yeah. So I was going to school to be a physician assistant. I got into this competitive program. I thought that science was my thing. I wanted to be in surgery and work in an operating room. And I did think that it was a passion of mine. I always loved learning in school. But in the meantime, while I was studying it for my science classes, I was very pulled to my creative side. So anything to do with film and photography and storytelling. And I was just really always obsessed with brands and the ones that feel so authentic. I'm a nerd for this stuff. I love it. But I started working on an app. It was called Mark Your Map, and it was this whole kind of like a scratch-off map and a scrapbook in one, so that instead of when somebody's like, hey, show me your pictures from Mexico 3 years ago, you're not scrolling forever. It was just you could pull up the parallel to a Facebook wall would be your map, and it has all the places that you visited colored in. It was this whole concept. But I became obsessed with doing whatever I could to make that happen. I read Jesse's book, and he showed me what entrepreneurship was.
And this is when you were still in sophomore year?
Yeah, sophomore year of college. So it was just it was the first time that I took a project into my own hands, and I was talking to people and joined different competitions, and it really started just exploring myself that way. And then in 2018, Jesse came out with the Build Your Life Resume coaching course, which it was 8 live Zoom calls, a really small Facebook group of people where he would go live and tell these stories from his life experience and takeaways. And it was a really intimate group. There's a small group of us, and I was the youngest one. And so I would send videos and be like, hi, my name is Amanda. I do a lot of video editing. If anybody wants promo videos done for free, I'm trying to build my portfolio. And basically by the end of the course, Jesse is so enthusiastic about getting your foot in the door and believing in yourself. I decided to take a note from his book and take a chance on myself by taking a leave of absence from school. So I was supposed to start grad school a couple months in July, and we're around May 2018. And I didn't want to sit in a classroom from 9 to 5 every day. So I figured they'll hold my spot for a year, which they so graciously accepted that. And I could just work on myself entrepreneurially, creatively. And if it didn't work out, all right, I gave it a shot. I'll just go back to school. But so then within those 3 months, a lot changed from May to July, because when I went back to New York to live with my family, and Jesse had a book signing in New York. He's coming out with the book Living with the Monks. And I went to support and be like, hi, I'm in your course. And he recognized me. He was like, Amanda, you're the youngest one. You're in my course. I'm like, this guy recognizes me? This is crazy. And he's like, I told my wife about you. You're the youngest one. I'm like, oh my God. Sarah's my idol.
Yeah.
Talk about female empowerment and women who just believe in themselves.
Yeah.
I was in awe.
She's
He's
a
like,
badass.
do do you want do you want it? Maybe you could get an internship at Spanx. What? And I'm like, oh, like, what is happening right now? And I happened to like film a video of the entire experience. I was just like, okay, I'm going to the city. This is going to be a fun day. I'm going to like vlog it. So I make this whole video that's like, what did Jesse Itzler say to me? And make it kind of like quirky and dramatic. And I made that video and then posted it. And he's like, this is so funny. Can you send that to me? I want to show my wife. And I'm like, yes. Like when I tell you,
You're like, we're pretty much homies by now.
right. I have like what, 13 subscribers, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 people watch my videos. And now like Jesse's like, let me send it to my wife, Sarah Blakely. Like talk about like, it doesn't matter who's watching. It doesn't matter how many people are watching. It's like who is watching, right?
Did you send that to him by DM, like the vlog, or?
Yeah, I ended up emailing it to him. So I like posted it on Instagram, tagged him. He saw it. He asked me if I'd email it to him.
Gotcha.
And then to follow up with that, I was like, okay, there's momentum here. I don't want it to just be like a lost thing where he's like, oh, maybe we should do something together. And then like nothing ends up happening. Like I wanted to keep following up. And it was like, okay, how can I think outside the box? So I had just taken his Build Your Life Resume course, which is all about like living your life for a living. Like it's not about just like excel in business here. It's every single bucket of your life, relationships, health, people, business,
super cool concept,
family. Yeah. And so I basically took everything he taught in that course, reapplied it to him. And in this life resume, it wasn't just like, hey, I was in this entrepreneurial competition, or hey, these are the videos that I've made. It was like, this is me to my core of who I am as a human being. And that included like he really values friendships. He talks about how he still has annual get-togethers with his friends from high school and college. And that's just something that like me and my high school friends since we were 15, it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, but every December 23rd, we get together. And so it's like putting pictures in there of like, the evolution of us over the years, just like really personal to me to show him who I am. And at the end, I said, this is the way in which I think I could help you with your brand in terms of social media and video and visuals. I just took a leave of absence from school and I'm willing to build my life resume in any way possible. And basically there was a couple emails sent back and forth and it ended with, cool, would you be willing to move to Atlanta to work with me and my wife? And I packed my bags and moved in. I'd never been to Atlanta, Georgia. I showed up with 3 suitcases to their house and they moved me into their house for the first month.
That's wild. And I mean, it's crazy because he like barely knew you. Right? It's like he met you once. It's not like he interviewed you or anything. And then you guys exchanged a couple emails and he was like, you want to move in with me and my wife and my kids?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a couple emails. I met him at the book signing, and then he did say over the summer, he was like, do you want to come to Hell on the Hill, which is this event that he has at his house every year, so you could meet Sarah, which like, are you familiar with Hell on the Hill at all?
Is that the 29-0-29 thing or?
It's different than that.
Okay.
So he has a house in Connecticut, and they're big like endurance people to see like how long they could run, how far they could push themselves. And it started out as like a challenge for him and his friends, but it quickly grew into an event because people would do it. But he has a house in Connecticut and there's a really, really steep hill in his backyard. And you have run up and down it 100 times over the course of 4 hours.
So similar to the thing, yeah.
Similar to 29-0-29, yeah. Except it's more like just like personal family friends. It's not like an event you can buy tickets to.
Gotcha.
And he goes, Amanda, do you want to come to Hell on the Hill to meet Sarah? Like you could bring like whoever you want. Yeah, but that way I want you to meet her. And I'm like, oh my God, like this guy's my future boss. Like I have to impress him. So like I have to do it. Like I have to participate in this challenge. It was like people train for this thing. He invited me like 4 days before. And I'm relatively athletic, but I'm not like 4-hour endurance challenge up and down like a 40% grade incline. Yeah. Like, but I did it. And it was one of the best things ever because it just like showed that like when you tap into something in your mind and commit to it, it was like I went into like a zone and he was like, holy shit, did you do that whole thing? And I'm like, hey.
Is that Goggins mentality?
For real.
That's wild. That's wild. So I have so many questions, but like first of all, the life resume you sent him, do you still have a video? That was a video, right? that you put
So it was
together?
it was a document,
It was a
but
document.
then the video that I had made at his book signing and some things that I said in between kind of was parallel to that.
Okay, cool.
So it was two.
Do you still have that? Like, is that something we can share with people, like in the show notes, if they want to check it out?
I'll take a look at it. I haven't publicly shared it yet, but I've
Okay.
been thinking about it. So I'll take a look and I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I just feel like that could be just showing people. Unfortunately, like the website that I put together that I want to work for impacttheory.com, I didn't like it expired. It's kind of one of those things where you get a domain and you get like a chargeback like every reminder to like renew it, and you just ignore it. And unfortunately, I never renewed it, and it lost everything. So I don't have like a, and even going on the Internet Archive, like I can't find like a
Oh
recording of it,
no.
unfortunately. But I think it's super helpful for like for people to see those things of like, oh, like how do I create something that kind of like stands out, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, let me know if you're comfortable sharing that after. But what was in that document besides? So it's like it seems like it was your life resume, right? And at the
Mhm.
end, I'm curious about the end part where you kind of like pitch yourself and like kind of like how you could help his brand.
Mhm.
Yeah, what did that look like?
Yeah, so the document, like I said, it had the part about like friendships, which I knew he valued. So I tried to hit every single bucket, as he calls them,
Mm-hmm.
like family, friends, health, adventure, and entrepreneurship. So family, like my document started out with like I have two younger siblings and they're like my best friends. Like we grew up very close, and I feel like part of my purpose from a young age was just to be a good role model for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was like the first thing. It was like setting the tone of like to my core, this is a value that I have, and I know he values that as well. And then just going into, I just studied abroad in Costa Rica
Oh, very cool.
a couple months before, so I was volcano boarding. Like I
What's
was
that?
hiking. So there's a volcano called Cerro Negro in Nicaragua, and it's this active volcano that you could ride it like snowboard down the volcano on a board.
Say
So
what?
so it was
You,
just
you actually snowboard it? Like you snow?
yeah, like you're it's like this board and
Uh-huh.
you can stand or sit. I sat. And yeah, you just like fly down the side
So
of
it's like
this.
slide like a sled. You're like
Mhm.
sledding down it. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Um and I was just like hiking up mountains and at the time like my Spanish was like fluent because I'd just been there for so long. So just like it was a picture of me and my host mom and like um just different adventures, different parts of myself. When it came to the entrepreneurial part, I told you I had been working on that app
Mm-hmm.
at school. So I had been joining pitch competitions and I actually won one of the competitions. And so it's just like a picture of me like speaking in front of the crowd with like the check and like just showing that like, hey, here are the fun parts of me, but this is, the business where I'm proving my credibility and why I say I think you could hire me for this job. And at the end, yeah, it was just a short paragraph at the end. And it was just saying how like I value like how much I've learned from him and about like getting your foot in the door. And I just took a leave of absence to take a chance on myself. And I'd love the opportunity to put that time towards you and to build my life resume in ways I don't even know. And basically I just said in terms of any sort of video editing, filming, social media, I can be there. But besides that though, like I didn't confine myself to a specific role and say hire me for this.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like this is in general what I just seem to be inherently good at. Like it wasn't what I was studying at school, but it was all the stuff that I taught myself on the side that just I was genuinely curious how it works.
Yeah, yeah.
And 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 that was that. Like I didn't get hired for like, hey, you're social media coordinator. I was positive vibes intern for the
That's
first
like
6 months because he was like, because it was like we all we know is we want you here. We don't know where yet, so we're
yeah,
gonna throw you everywhere and see what happens.
that's so cool. That's so you touched on a really interesting point because like I feel like a lot of the times, like people that want to, I mean, maybe work with someone, or I mean, just even just like getting a job, you know, like they're like, oh, I don't really have any skills, you know. Um, and you mentioned like side projects, and I think that's like a really cool way to like build just random skills, right? Which you don't know like how they'll pay off in the end. But I guess can you talk a little more about like the project you mentioned, the startup I mean like the travel app you're working on. Where do you learn, like it seems like the video editing really paid off. Like how did you build that skill?
Yeah. Well, I just was always curious about that. I mean, I was in like seventh and eighth grade, ninth, when I just explored iMovie. Like me
Mm-hmm.
and my friends, like I always had a camera with me. Like looking back, and we'd make skits and then I'd edit it together. And me and my
Nice.
siblings, like they're endearing and half so embarrassing to watch back. But that's where like it was just always that was how I would use my free time to
Yeah.
create these stories and capture these moments in time. And as I got older, and started working on this app and thinking about like marketing and researching different companies and why I liked certain campaigns better than others, it was like, what could I do? And I was introduced to Adobe Premiere Pro, um, and I was like, my like life just was like transformed because iMovie is just like the basic way of learning
Mm-hmm.
it. And then Premiere Pro was like, holy shit, this like there's so many different effects and ways of communicating what like as I really was able to take all the things that I could see in my mind and bring them to reality through this program. And so I just explored it. Like I just come up with videos to make. So many of them were just like they didn't have a purpose, but it was allowing myself the space to
Like
just create for the sake of creating.
what was that, still like skits or stuff, or was that stuff for a startup? Or I know you're doing like a little vlogging for a little time, like a little bit.
Yeah. Um yeah, so at the time when I started exploring Premiere, it was more so for like Mark Your Map was the startup I was working on, so it was trying to make different like commercials for that and exploring what that would look like. I don't really do like skits anymore. That was like, when I was like 13, 14. Um, or just like different artistic videos of like, shooting beautiful landscapes and putting music to it and learning like to overlay film grain and like just trying to explore what my style is. Yeah. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
yeah,
question?
yeah, no, totally. And another thing I wanted to underline is that you took Jesse's course. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't realize, that like the people you follow or look up to or like kind of like are learning from on the internet, they're actually way easier to reach than you would expect, right? Um,
So accessible.
yeah. So can you talk a little bit about like how what that was like, and um I guess how much access do you get just through a course, you know?
Yeah. I'm somebody who's super invested in people. Like I think that is my driving force is like if I find somebody that inspires me or come across them, through social media or on the computer or in a magazine, like I deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Like because I'm
You
just so
binge, yeah.
curious. Yeah, because it's like if that person got there and that inspires me, like why can't I? Like what about what they did? What did they
Mm-hmm.
do and how can I apply that to my life? So it's like if you find somebody that inspires you, like why not take the course? Like you said, that just gives you an extra layer to show that person who inspires you that you're interested enough and dedicated enough to what they're believing in, that you want to be a part of it and are willing to put the time or monetary investment into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, especially like at the beginning with Jesse's course, it was the first course he did. So it was so like he wanted it to be perfect. He was so hands-on. He's responding, and even now still like with all the courses, he knows people by like name. Like it's very, especially when you get such authentic people who want to be a part of, who really do believe in the message that they're talking about. Like he's very like intimately involved with the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Um and one more thing that I want to underline, like you just mentioned, it was his first course. And that's another thing where it's like I feel like for me when I got on in with Tom, he was just starting Impact Theory. So it was like another thing where it's like I feel like a lot of times with these people there's like an opportunity where it's like they're starting something and they can use help, you know? And so I
Hmm.
feel like that's the perfect time to kind of like reach out as well. Not that like you did it intentionally, you know, but like there's like I guess
Right.
some luck involved, but yeah. Yeah.
There's, yeah. I like what Jesse says about putting yourself in a position where luck can find you, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't just get my job with him because he like saw me and was like, "Oh, you look like you could be good at this," or Tom didn't seek you out in a crowd and be like, "Hey, that guy over there, like, you want to work for me?" Like, we both individually reached out multiple times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Before that luck was able to come into our life and happen.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So for someone that's kind of in a situation where you were, or I don't know if you liked the physician assistant studies you were doing, but like, actually, did you? Were you liking it, or I'm assuming you weren't a fan, you weren't super fulfilled because you took a leave of absence, right?
Right. What's interesting is I never hated it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I enjoyed learning about the body and how it works, and I'm just a curious person by nature. So like learning, I like it.
Mm.
So I could have stayed there and been a physician assistant, but it was the creative expression that was lacking. So it's not that I didn't like the studies themselves. I just had to follow some sort of intuition that was leading me towards more expression of myself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that it led me there.
So let's say someone is seeking that I guess seeking something more than like let's say they're in college or in a job that they're not like super passionate about right now. Um, what recommendation would you have to them as far as like following that intuition, I guess?
Hmm. I'd say the first step is sitting with yourself and listening to that voice that's like, something doesn't feel fulfilled, or I don't want to go to this today. I don't want to do this. Like, where does your mind wander where you start to get excited? I think that's something that I allowed myself at a young age, was to not shut myself down. It was like when I would find these people who just seemed larger than life in my eyes and like be inspired by them, it was never like, oh, well, I'm here, so I can never be that. It was just like, well, why can't I be that? Like,
Mm,
what about what they're doing inspires me, and why does that feel aligned with me? Like it's just listening to yourself and getting an idea of like knowing who you are, what fulfills you, and how you can possibly turn it into your life. Because ultimately, it seems like we're given these job listings, right? Like, are you an accountant? Are you this? Are you that? But really, if you just listen to what you like to do, you could turn that into a job.
mm-hmm.
Like, you could find some sort of way to use your unique talent to apply it to something without having to apply for a job that has a specific title, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I think you it seems like you're doing a good job of it. It's something that's not always obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about when you started with Jesse. Like like moving to Atlanta. That must have been a crazy, I mean, yeah, that must have been a crazy ride.
Yeah, it was wild. I was recently reading over, I'd write a lot. I have like a lot of journal entries. And I was reading over some entries from the first week, and it was overwhelming and it was exciting because it was just new territory. Like, and it's something that is so unique that it felt unrelatable to other people. So how do I even explain or like talk about it? But I have great family and friends who are so supportive. But yeah, I showed up to their house with three suitcases. Like, literally, I was moving my life to this house I had never been before. The Uber driver's like talking, and I'm like, oh my God, we're 0 minutes away. And we pull up, and Jesse comes like walking around the house. He's like, Amanda, welcome to Atlanta. And he's like, let me give you a tour. And he like showed me around his house. His son was like, let me take your suitcase. His son was probably like 5 at the time. Like, everyone immediately so friendly. And I actually have a funny story from the first day. So he leads me around the house. It's like, you know, my house is your house. I'm like, what is happening right now? And we're sitting there, and Laser is their son, and he was 9 at the time. And we're talking, and he's like, do you get embarrassed? And I'm like, you know, I get embarrassed sometimes, like, but you know, it's nothing that like you can't get over. It's kind of just part of life, and it makes you who you are. So I get embarrassed, but it doesn't bother me. He's like, okay, you know, my mom like is really good at getting embarrassed, and I'm like, yeah, like that's amazing. I'm like, oh my God, he's comparing me to his mom, and she hadn't come in yet. She hadn't gotten home, and she gets home, and we're all in the kitchen and putting away groceries, and I was like, let me help. I'm always like, you know, I'm trying to be thoughtful of how I can not just be this awkward fly on the wall. I'm like, let me help you put things away. So we're all talking, and Sarah's literally like telling her son, like, well, do you know why Amanda's here? And he's like, no. She's like, because she did something that like made herself stand out. And, you know, if the universe has brought her here, it's for a reason. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best day of my life. Like, it was very surreal. And so Laser then goes, Amanda, will you help me peel this apple? And I go, sure, like, yeah. And it was one of those ones, have you ever seen, like, you put the apple on the prongs and you turn the thing and it peels it in a circle?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. He's like, I can't get the apple off the prongs. And I'm like, okay, let me try. I'm in the kitchen with everyone. And I pull the apple and just punch myself in the face. Like, I just straight up, like, hit myself right in the nose. Jessie literally like starts cracking up. Everyone's looking at me. And I just thought it was this perfect learning opportunity of we had this whole conversation 5 minutes before about embarrassment and how it's like you have to just laugh with it and laugh with yourself. And I just punched myself in the face in front of all these people. And it was just one of those moments that it was just like, wow, okay, like own it, carry on. And like it was just a funny way to introduce myself to the family.
Damn. Yeah, that's funny. That's a funny first day. Wow. And so you're just are you're living in their house, or do you live next door, or you're living with them? You're kind of part of the family in a way, right?
Yeah, like sitting at family dinner with them every night, like.
Oh wow. Okay.
As
you're like you're like an au pair, but like I mean you're the creative director. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, I was still Positive Vibes intern.
Yeah.
But yeah, their niece was living with them at the time too, and she was 24, and so I moved there when I was 20, and so it was nice to also have like a friend around my age. So her and I kind of like banded together, and eventually her and I had moved out together. But yeah, living, and it still feels that way because I'm there at their house often. I work from their house, so they are not just like people I work with. They really did bring me in as their family. Like I didn't have any other family here. I didn't have any prior family or friends. And so to be a little over like 2 years in, and turn to them like for help, or, you know, if I'm, you know, to bring me in as their family, inviting me to things. It's just, I pinch myself. Like I'm so grateful to like have like a workplace, but also a family.
Yeah. No, that's like probably for a lot of people, it's like a dream. It's like the dream scenario. I mean, you're living with like the people, like you're part of the family of the person you used to. You still look up to him, but yeah. So how do you go from like tell us about the journey from Positive Vibes intern to creative director? Like, what does that? So I think you said for the first 6 months. You were the Positive Vibes intern. Was that like an unpaid internship, or was it paid? And like, how did that evolve?
Yeah, I was getting compensated.
Okay.
They had like covered like part of my housing and like just like some pay. Yeah, and to me, it was like more than enough. Like all I needed was just to like survive. Like none of this was about money for me at all. Like. Very big into like it's like the relationship building. It's like
100%.
That's so important. So the journey from Positive Vibes intern to creative director. So Positive Vibes intern for the first 6 months, which that was just being put everywhere. Like so Jesse's a part of like a lot of different. He has build your life resume. He has 29029. He's working on a couple other projects. So I
Oh, and
sit
just
in on.
sorry for the people that are not familiar with Jesse, I feel like it might be a good idea just to just give them some background about him, and but at the same time, Sarah as well, since she's a badass as well. So
Yeah. So some background about Jesse Itzler. He's a serial entrepreneur, an endurance athlete, an author. He was a co-founder at Zico Coconut Water, if you're familiar with that water. Marquis Jet, which was the first private jet card company. So before Marquis Jet, if you wanted a private jet, you either had to own it or be a part of a timeshare, something like that. And instead, he founded a company where you could just buy hours. So if you needed 6 hours to get from New York to LA, you just had to buy 6 hours on your card instead of, renting a whole airplane for longer than that. And so he sold that to Warren Buffett.
right?
Yeah, Warren Buffett's NetJets. And he is the author of Living with a Seal, which is this awesome New York Times bestseller, which is how I found him, was through reading that book.
And that was David Goggins that came to live with him, right?
Yeah, David Goggins came to live with him and his family for 30 days. So it's like this trend of just moving people into his house. And that was a really interesting story. He started out as a rapper at 22 and just his goal was to get a record deal. It's very each thing that he's done, he's also had no prior experience or prior education in, and it's all about just knowing and believing in yourself that you could provide value where you want to be and just doing it. So that's background on him. And Sarah Blakely is his wife, and she is the founder of Spanx, which is just an incredible story. She founded the company with $5,000. To this day, still has 100% equity. And Spanx is just shapewear, undergarments, leggings. It's really expanded over the past 20 years, but oh my God, she paved the way for women.
Yeah, I remember reading the story she's I think she's succeeded with that company for a while now. I remember maybe 10 years ago reading that story of some kind of underdog story where she just kept going. She had this idea and she just kept going at it and going at it and going at it and trying to get investors and stuff. And I just remember it being a really inspiring story.
Yeah. And that's what's amazing about her is especially just females in entrepreneurship and being around that, and how it's cool because I don't sit down with her. Her time is very precious. I'm not going to sit down and be like, hey, let me interview you. But it's we get that in passing, or when we're sitting at the dinner table, it's wow, I really get to talk to her and hear what she has to say. And she was when I started out in business, everyone was telling me business means war. And, these men in the boardroom are, they're not going to fight right or fair. And she's I vowed to myself that I would do it in a way that felt right to me, which is with more feminine energy and flow. And the fact that she stood true to that, when I can imagine that that's really hard when people aren't seeing the value in that. And really to have 100% equity and not take in any investors and have people come to her and be let me invest in your company, and her be no, I can do this. I'm good myself. It's so empowering.
Yeah. No, she's a badass. You mentioned kind of getting nuggets kind of wisdom like that in passing, and I feel that's something that's kind of a recurring theme in these interviews of the lessons you learn from the people you work for or in proximity with. A lot of it is learning through observation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it for sure.
So let's get back to so positive vibes to creative director.
Yes. So Positive Vibes Intern, I spend 6 months just attending every meeting, helping out everywhere I can, doing everything I can to stay involved and to really put a lot of time into it. By the end of the 6 months, they're yes, Amanda, we want to hire you. like for like not as an intern, and I was social media coordinator. So it was for Jesse's account. He has this company called Build Your Life Resume now, which is a series of coaching courses and just like him taking these stories that he's had throughout all of his different experiences and companies and putting them in a digestible format where you feel like you can have actionable takeaways at the end. And so that was the course I had taken when I had first gotten involved with him, but it's expanded since. And so I was working on that social media account, and 29029 is another company that he has, which is an endurance hiking company, and it's called 29029 because Mount Everest is 29,029 feet. So what we do is we rent a mountain, and participants have 36 hours to hike the mountain as many times as it equals Mount Everest. So in Utah, Snow Basin Mountain, they'll hike up, take the gondola down 13 times over the course of 36 hours. It's a really difficult challenge. It's really difficult.
Did you do it?
But it's like proving
did you do
yourself.
The whole thing?
I haven't done it because I've been working it every time.
To run it, yeah.
So, yeah.
I just found out about it today, doing a little research, and I was like, damn, this is so cool. This is such a cool concept.
It's amazing. Like, I watch people's lives transform in front of themselves. Like their belief in themselves changes. And it's so emotional. And it doesn't matter who you are attending that event, because that mountain like breaks you down, sounds intense, but it just brings a certain humility into every single person. It's like you can be an Olympic athlete or someone who signed up and had never done a 5K. But they told themselves that they were going to Everest and reach 29,029 feet. It's amazing. So I was working on all those different social media accounts. And at the time, like nobody was. Like there was no person in charge of content. There was no person in charge of social or just community management.
Did he have any presence at all? Like was he doing it himself or?
Yeah, he was doing it himself. The Build Your Life Resume one, we started from scratch. 29029 had like 1,000 followers. And there were people, like 3 people on the 29029 team. None of them like that were in charge of content specifically.
Gotcha. And how big was his personal account?
I think his personal account was around 80,000
Okay,
people.
Gotcha. And now it's something like 250,000, right?
Yeah, 280 something. But yeah, it was just like he's doing so many interesting things. It's just I kind of became this fly on the wall that like wherever he was going, it was like I was there to capture it. And he's like super autonomous over all of his things. Like as much as I was involved in social, there's also like a distance to it because I'm there to capture it. But like he writes all of his own captions. He still is in the DMs. He's still commenting. Like he really likes that.
And that's what I feel like the account has a very personal feel to it, and it's you can definitely sense that he's very hands-on on it still.
Yeah. Which it's an interesting line, like the authenticity between then just like automating it like a business because it is a brand, but it's like that's what's endearing is like you actually feel like you have pieces of him because it is him. Like he likes to do that.
Yeah.
But so in that whole. So this is the beginning of 2019 is when I came on as social media coordinator. 2019 through September of this past year, 2020 is when I came on as creative director. So there was a good year and a half where I was social media coordinator and working on his stuff. Then I transferred over to a lot more 29029 than Jesse. Jesse was like really focused on training for this endurance race called the Last Man Standing.
Okay.
That's where he was putting a lot of his time. So I had shifted some of my attention to 29029 and building out that event series and bringing more eyeballs to the mountain when, by curating the experience while we're there. And then this past summer, him and I were having like more discussions and he was like, I want you to come on as creative director and just like the whole like out of the box approach to things. It's something that I had also put together this whole experience for my friends over at Yes Theory, which they're awesome, like digital creators, and this whole pitch and all these ideas. And he was like, okay, yeah, come back over to my side and do all that over here. So yeah, so then 29029.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Because I was doing mostly 29.029, so that's when I went back to Jessie, and because of the pandemic, I was living in New York, but when I came back to Atlanta, I basically just like work from his house every day, and we just jam and create things and make plans.
Do you, since you mentioned it, do you want to mention the Life Full of Colors kind of collaboration with Yes Theory, and how did that happen? How did that come about? And how did it come about?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. Um, so like I said, I'm very driven by people.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I find somebody who inspires me, I'm like, oh my God, I got to go deeper. So I had like found out about Yes Theory, and it was when I first moved to Atlanta, and they're all about meeting strangers and making friends. And so it just gave me this feeling of like, wow, you're not alone. You're go out there and make friends. Like there's so much the world has to offer. And Amar had posted like a quick story on Instagram. He's one of the guys from Yes Theory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're in Atlanta for like 24 hours or 36 hours. Anybody around? And I DM'd him, just like, that's a common theme. Like, if I'm inspired by you, you have a message in like 2 seconds. Like, and it's just a thank you. I'm not asking for anything. Like, I learned back in 2016 when I DM'd Jesse and I asked him for his time. That doesn't work. A simple thank you and just like making the person feel seen for a craft that they've put out in the world is beautiful. I think that's amazing.
Totally.
So I DM'd him and was just like, hey, I just watched this documentary that you put out. Like, thank you so much. It makes me feel closer to like humanity and the community. And if like, I'd love to take you out to lunch as a thank you. So instead of being like, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? I want to ask you questions. It's like, if you have the time, I'd love to treat you, or I'd love to, that I've noticed that it just sounds more like a gift. It sounds more like an offer, not like taking from someone, but receiving. And talk about like luck and right timing. Like, what are the odds then that he sees mine out of however many he's getting? And he was like, hey, that sounds great. Thanks so much for that compliment. I haven't received something like that. Like, here's my number. Let's meet up. And it was just one of those like synchronicity moments. And we ended up meeting up a couple days later and just totally vibing on like art and the world. And we were just like, let's find a way to work together. And it didn't happen overnight.
This was back in 2018, 19?
2019, February of 2019. So 2 years ago. And yeah, we stayed in touch. He was like, I had just been starting to get into like my personal creative space of like, what is art to me? How do I put it out there? What's my messaging? So he's like, when you figure that out, like, let's do something together. So I just kind of did my own thing. And then during the pandemic, I realized I was like, it's now or never, there's only so long that an offer like, yeah, let's collaborate together can stand before, it disappears into the ether. Yeah. Right. So I was like, okay, this is my time. So I'd come up with this concept of Life Full of Color. And to me, I'm a very like emotional person. I'm very like, I like empathy. Like I feel a lot of things. And the way that for some reason, the way that my brain processes it is through color. Like I compare my emotions to color. And I was like, wow, talk about feeling a lot of things during the pandemic. Like one day life feels good, the other you have no clue what's going on. Totally. And the way that I thought about it is that, becoming a dynamic human is accepting yourself for all those things. And there's no reason to push away negative emotions because for some reason we were made and born to feel them. So that's part of it. And like, it's the same thing with like a rainbow and colors. It's like, you have those like blue shades and the darker shades and feelings, but like, you don't, for the full rainbow, which is just that like, wow, like all those colors, accept yourself for them.
Yeah.
So that's what Life Full of Color means to me. And basically I put together this whole pitch and campaign and created all of the designs and put together a magazine and shot a commercial and was like, I need to make this, if I want to pitch this collaboration to Yes Theory, I can't just say, okay, open your email. Like, I sent you something, just click through it. It's like, I wanted to make the experience as tangible as possible so they could see, wow, she put a lot of effort into this. And so I shot this whole campaign over the summer, this Life Full of Color collaboration, shipped it out to them, got on the Zoom call, gave them my pitch, and they were like, yeah, you already did all the work. Like, yeah.
So, I want to dig into that. So you you put together clothing, right? So like you put together design, you printed, I mean, like you actually made the stuff, right?
Yeah.
You made the stuff, you shot a campaign. So you got like friends together or like how did that work? And then can you go in depth on it? Because I briefly read something about like the pitch of like you sending the box with the letter and stuff. Can you go into that as well?
Yeah. So that was the best part, was shooting this whole campaign with friends and family, and like knowing that I've had so many ideas over these past couple years, and the people in my life have really supported me in them. So even with the Mark Your Map, that original app, like just the concept, I was so supported in thinking outside the box. And so when I had this new idea, it was like, let me get all these people who have been nothing but so supportive and accepting of me, and put them in one, like put them all together and let's make something beautiful. And especially during the pandemic, it was like it finally became the summer, and it was like we were all outside, and it was a way that we can all rally behind something that brought like light into our lives. It brought change and routine, and it was just so fun and colorful. And yeah, so I printed all of the clothes. So I designed them on my computer, came up with the designs, found a local t-shirt shop, made all the clothes. Because like I said, as tangible as an experience to give them, like I didn't want it to just be a picture of clothes, like so they could hold it in their hands, they could put it on, like um and I put it all in a box. So all the clothing, I made stickers, I made a magazine, I made another like this hardcover book, like over the top.
Gee, you made a
And
magazine. That's crazy.
yeah, I actually have it.
I'd love to see it.
Let me pull for it 1 second. Um, yeah, like a
That's super cool.
you can, it's just like
Do you have a
it's
digital
really
version
cool.
of that if people want to check it out? Or
Yeah, I can
cool.
definitely give that to you.
I'll put that in the show
It's really
notes too.
cool. And it was really just so I shipped it all out in like two huge boxes, sent it to them, and was like, don't even think about opening it until we can Zoom. Because I set it up in specific layers so that it like was leading them through an experience like a scavenger hunt. And
This is
at
like
the
Apple
bottom of the
level packaging.
yeah, I know. And at the bottom of the last box was like a photo, and on the back it says, if you'll have me, it would be an honor to be the next Seek Discomfort artist. So just like, oh, it was so fun, and just all the thinking of like, oh, let me add this and let's add this. And it was just like, it was proof to myself that I can come up with this crazy abstract idea and bring it to life in every single aspect.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Yeah, kudos on the creativity on that one. That's next level outreach. That's very cool.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so how did that go? I guess the collab, how did that go? I mean, they obviously they said yes. What were the next steps?
Yeah, so they said yes, and then the next couple months we were just like working on the concept and the designs, and then so that was in late August of 2020. So November, I flew out there and we decided to shoot a whole campaign. So the designs in my original pitch were different than the ones that we ended up coming out with. Um, so we got to like ideate when I was out there, and just put together this whole commercial of exactly what I did in New York with my friends from home, but just getting all these amazing people in LA being like, I showed up with like, here's my concept of like what a life full of color is. I want this romantic scene with two people and this picnic scene, and then we're on the beach at sunrise. Like it's like to have the whole concept and then piece together all the people that will be a part of this narration was just so fun. And to work with Yes Theory, they're, incredible creators and storytellers, and their zest for life is just like magnetic. So
Yeah.
so it was just so fun to create with them and be like respected as an artist, and join them on that journey.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems to me, I mean, you sold them on an idea, like a concept, and then that kind of, I mean, they're sold on that, and then you guys kind of repackaged it. But yeah, how long were you out there in LA?
10 days.
10 days. Okay. That's
Yeah.
right. And you stayed with them, or you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got to like spend so much time with them and work from their house, and it was really fun. It was definitely a mix of like business and play, because it's such a LA is nice. It's a cool place.
It is. Um, let's see. So, for Yes Theory, what was the biggest takeaway you got from working with them?
Mm. The biggest takeaway that I got from working with them, I think, some uh like sometimes when you see these like big campaigns, like at least looking at it from the outside, I'm like, wow, that probably took this many people and all these people were involved. How could I be there? What could I like, how could that be me? And really when we were out there, it was just like a couple of us, big ideas, no limits. How can we make this happen? All right, cool. All right, we want to do like a splatter paint scene in the basement, but we don't want to make a big mess. Well, how could we make that happen? Okay, let's. And it was just like a small team of us bringing together all these other people to be a part of this message, and like it just felt like limitless. The fact that we could get together for 10 days, and honestly, it was less shooting time than that. Like
Mm-hmm.
just like to pull together such a beautiful campaign that when we did launch, the response was amazing. Like people being like, wow, I've never thought of life that way, and comparing my emotions to colors. I accept myself more because of this mantra, or I'm dropping out of school. And I'm like, oh my God. It's just the power in creative people getting together and not putting limits on themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, that must be beautiful to see your idea coming to life. And the other thing is, I think like one of the big, I kind of want to communicate through this podcast as well, like the value of working with, with the people that kind of inspire you. And one of the things that the takeaway that you're basically saying is that when you're working alongside these people, like you start, like your vision of like what's possible kind of like expands, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a bit. I'm sure you've gotten that like a ton from Jesse as well. I've certainly gotten that from Tom, and now from Noah, who I'm working with as well. But yeah, for me, that's one of the biggest perks, where it's like, holy shit, like especially when you're hanging around. I mean, like at Impact Theory, there's so many. I mean, Jesse came, so many inspirational people just walking, like coming through the house. Just it's like it happens so often that like it just feels normal in the end, and you have to like you have to remind yourself like, whoa, I have to like, this is special, you know.
Yes.
But like hanging around all these people, you're just like, wow, they're just like regular, they're just like you and me, you know. And you're like, if they can do it, like I can do it too, you know. And I think that's one of
100%.
the huge draws.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, like poking your head out of the bubble every so often and being like, okay, like reminding myself that this is like not every day. But yeah, like working with Jesse, especially, like having this person who just has like no limits on like what he can create or talk about, or just how genuine he is and how kind, and relationships and people that he welcomes, whether they're, a random person in his DMs that is now at his house, or, ludicrous DMing him. Like it's just like it's but something that has given me so much confidence was just like him seeing something in me. And, he didn't have to give me this opportunity, but he did. And I don't take that for granted at all, because the amount of respect he's given me, value in my opinion, as like a young 23-year-old woman, like I'm just beginning in my career.
Yeah.
And the fact that like I feel like he has made me feel as if what I say, has weight to it and has purpose and value, and that's just setting the foundation for whatever else is to come in my life. And it's interesting. I really, really love this concept of your podcast, and I'm so happy you reached out, because sometimes I wonder, I'm like, who are the people behind the scenes? Like, these entrepreneurs, like they have teams, like where are they? And something that Jesse has been really being an advocate for is like, Amanda, take it and like put your face in, like you're the one there, like you're the one narrating it, so you might as well engage with it. And I think that's so empowering, especially as like a young woman, because I don't know it. I really do not know many other women in this position, females. Like, so I just feel to have a voice in this arena is, I'm really appreciative and grateful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's very cool that he lets you kind of be behind the camera as well, I guess, and like a spotlight on you as well. I feel like we're gonna start seeing that a little more.
In terms of just how
what's that?
Are in terms of how creators are using their social or videos?
I think in terms of lifting, like I like the analogy of like lifting the curtain and like kind of like showing behind the scenes more. I think people really like to see that as well, so I think more and more we're seeing creators kind of like show behind the scenes, and I think as well the people behind the scenes kind of documenting what's happening, because it's like for people that want to see like what these entrepreneurs and creators lives are really about, it's super valuable for like people like you to document that,
Right, totally.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so you did this amazing collab with Yes Siri, and then Jesse's like, "Yo, can you do this for me?" First of all, you weren't working. Were you still working for him, like remotely during this time? Like, were they like, oh, like because of COVID, it's kind of a little risky to keep you around, or, and then, yeah, I guess. What did Jesse think of the collab, and what did he ask you exactly?
Yeah, no. So like I had said, switched over to social media coordinator during that time and was focusing on 29029, which is the endurance hiking company. So I was still working with Jesse and working with the company, and working remotely. Like all of us had just worked remote. And I'm so grateful for that, because it really gave me this like sense of purpose during that time too, like to still have a job to go to every single day. So grateful for that, because those were weird times.
Oh, yeah.
This time last year when this pandemic was starting everything. I know I feel like I'm being a little bit dramatic, being like, Jesse was like, can you do that for me? But no, I was working more on 29029, and Jesse wasn't as focused on, he was just doing more things with like his family, his races. Like we weren't documenting as much. And then when I had just been like, hey, check out this project that I was working on, it's like, that's amazing. Like maybe you can switch from 29029 social media to like more creation here. Like let's make more things. Like come be my creative director, and let's just create more projects like the one that you just did for them, because that just was something that wasn't on our timeline at the moment. And then it was like, oh shit, like this is fun, you seem to have done well with it, so let's figure out a way to do more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And so what projects emerged from that conversation?
Yeah, so it's been cool and interesting because it's a pandemic, there hasn't been much travel, like going places. Like a lot of it is around like filming, just like, what he's up to in his day to day. Because it really, like, every day is different. Like he talks about, building his life resume. So it's like is today about health? Is today about endurance? Are you with your family today? Are we working on a big business idea? So it's just filming and documenting all those, knowing that we're putting that towards something bigger. And he came out with this big calendar, this like 365-day calendar that he talks about. So that was a project that we worked on.
It's funny because I actually saw an ad for that the other day, like before I stumbled upon your Instagram profile, and I was like, this is so cool. I didn't get it right away, but I was like, Yeah, this is really cool. Like the just
Yeah.
you want to explain the concept quickly?
Yeah, so he calls it the Big Ass Calendar Club. And basically, we have our agenda books and our calendars, but he's like, I really like things that are like year at a glance, really big. So he came out with a big ass calendar, which like legitimately it wouldn't even fit in the screen if I held it up right now. Um, and it just has all 365 days of the year. And it's so that it's kind of like what is the word that I'm thinking of? Um, Scorecard. It's like a scorecard for your year, like because you can look at it and like see like all the different things you've done on different days and block it out at a glance. So that when you look back at the end of the year, it's like, oh wow, I really did do a lot. Because I know that I got to the end of last year and I sat down and like wrote a list. I'm like, okay, what did I do in January? And then like, but if you keep track using this calendar the whole year, it's like you could look at it and be like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So we came out with this whole like coaching course with it and sold all these calendars. And so we got to like work on the marketing, and which was really fun, and capture all the behind the scenes. And we have some exciting things in 2021 on our list. I'll keep them quiet for now, but we'll see. We'll see what comes about.
Exciting. So
Yes.
the creative director stuff is basically it seems like you kind of have free reign to kind of create, right? Around obviously around his brand and stuff, but like I think I saw the making of the big ass calendar. That's kind of part of like what you're doing now, right?
hmm Yeah, like just any sort of like creative process. Like it's still we're like looking to build out our team soon.
That's
Just in
exciting.
like yeah, like really building out to like carry out bigger visions.
Hmm.
And because right now I definitely am like a catch-all role still, like um
I'd be happy
filming,
to
editing.
I'd be happy to help connect you with anyone. I think I was mentioning like an agency before they've been so helpful with Tom's account. But we can talk about it after if
Perfect.
you want
Yeah,
to.
I'd
Yeah.
love to. Yeah, no, I'd love to learn more. Um, yeah, it really is. And I'm learning to like step into that, like being told like, okay, just go for it. It's like, okay, like sounds good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Damn, that's the dream job. Just backtracking a little. I was because you mentioned the 29029
Mhm.
responsibility. Can you talk a little more about like how it was working on? Because I'm guessing you did some like event planning for that as well, or was it just the branding?
So yeah, 29029. We have an event. We have an amazing events team. This guy, Garth, he's the event director. Rachel came on. Mark's the co-founder with Jessie of the company. And it's like that was it. Like we're a small team, yet put on this insane event. So I wasn't part of event planning in terms of like logistically what's at the mountain, but in when it comes to like influencers who are going to come, or creating the promotional things, promotional assets to post beforehand and put on different websites, and just keeping up with like community management and people
Mm-hmm.
who are finding us through social media and making sure like we're posting and coming up with creative content and building our awareness. And then the biggest thing, so then event week, um, we would show up like a couple days to a week before the event, and that's when we set up the whole mountain. So that's when it doesn't really matter if I'm social media or not, because I'm still like hands-on prepping everything for the event itself. And then once the event starts, it's like fun because there's no designated spot that I have to be. It's just like I'm everywhere to capture like the event from the start to the end. And we didn't have any events in 2020, but 2019 those events were so fun because um, it's just buzzing up and down the mountain and capturing people's stories and the uniqueness and just the triumph that people feel when they finally complete it. And I know like I think even we invited Tom and Lisa to 29029, but then the pandemic happened.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
the invitation still stands for 2021. But yeah, it was really cool. And to see, we had a really huge like uptick in growth on our socials in 2019 when I documented them. And I know Rachel Hollis came and participated. And a bunch of people, and just to see the interaction. I mean, social media is amazing. It's this, it depends on how you use it.
Yeah.
But to be able to connect with so many people from home and curate the entire experience throughout the 3 to 4 days that we were there, and have people be like, oh my God, I feel like I'm there with you. Like that's such an amazing feeling.
Do you, when you were, I know when I was doing like events for Tom, like I felt overwhelmed because I was like, there's so many things going on. Like there's so many things I'm not documenting. You can only do like one thing and you're like, oh my God, like I'm missing so much. Like what do you focus on?
Oh my God, I'm so happy you said that, because yes, it very much is that. And then like, you're on one thing and somebody's like, Amanda, but this is going on over there. I'm like, okay. Let me go over there and figure that out. Yeah, it's a lot, because it's like, how can you can only presently be where you are in that moment, but you're already thinking ahead, like, okay, then I have to get up. Yeah. It's that's something that it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And people don't really when you think of social media, it's like, okay, cool, like you're social, you post, but curating stories themselves, like, it's an entire storyline. Like it's an entire experience that people get to watch. And the captions, the music, this, that, because if you do it right, you're really creating something beautiful. Like it's not just like a boop, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you started, you didn't have any experience, right? Like for social media in general. I mean, you're doing your own, obviously, but do you want to talk a little bit about that, of like how you figured it out?
Yeah, and just by doing that, like trying to figure it out. Like,
yeah,
I had my own social that was fun. It wasn't a business.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a crazy following at all. But I was just engaged with it and very attuned to what people were interested in. And I think I'm good at like picking up trends in terms of like what people are interested in watching. And I just followed that. And I had, like, starting out, I was definitely intimidated, because I was like, this is his brand. Like he's like, Amanda, this is my brand. I've been in charge of my brand for 30 years. Now you can. And I'm like, wow. Like, and it was definitely the support and trust from the people around me, the guidance from people around me. I did a lot of, I got connected with people who were in the space, friends of friends who were like, oh, my friend Brian does social media. And I get it on a call, and he'd say the same thing. He's like, when I was starting out, you get the hang of it. Just keep trying. A lot of social media is testing. If things don't work, now that doesn't work. Like there is, and the algorithm is constantly changing. Like there is no clear direction.
Yeah.
And it's definitely intimidating, but a lot of it's luck. You have one good event where one person posts, and all of a sudden there are more eyeballs on your page. Like it's strategic, but it's also luck.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to tell you a little more about how we grew Tom's account after. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have looked into like collabs, like doing like paid shout outs and stuff on like quality pages, but that's something that definitely helped us to grow Tom's page. But the other day you posted something in stories where it was like, I think it was something like, why do you follow Jessie, or like what value do you get out of the account? Can you talk about more about that, and like I guess the thought that goes behind putting the content you guys put out on his personal account?
Yeah. So I've mentioned it a few times. Jesse's like there's no clear. Some entrepreneurs go like a mile deep and like, I'm going to talk about content and that's it. Or I'm going to talk about this business thing and that's it. And like, what's unique about him is that he is all over the place. Like he is just like it, like you said, there's this very personal feel to his account because he's just himself. And so the other day I was just looking to gain more insight. Is there anything specific that people follow him for? And Is it the business? Is it the endurance challenges he does? Is it his interesting family dynamic between him and his wife and his kids? What is it? And so I mean, Instagram's such a good tool because there's your focus group. Like these are all the people that decide to follow him. And with the polls and quizzes and questions on, it's so easy to just put out a questionnaire. So I was like, why don't I give this a shot? And it was just I like, why do you follow Jesse? What content do you gravitate towards? And if you could describe him in one word, what would it be? And I just was looking for like patterns and responses to see if there was like a certain theme that people got from him, and they were all consistent with the messaging that we like, the essence of who Jesse is. So that was a really great study. But we try to keep it authentic.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it. And it's like difficult because, you know, you think in order to grow it, you have to automate to make things easier. And it's like finding that line of like, okay, but we want authenticity.
Yeah.
So what is that? And that's like something we're like working on and working through now. It's like what is that? What does that look like for us? But ultimately where we're landing on is just him living more life experiences and just me being a fly on the wall and capturing it. Like, it's not about creating content for Instagram.
Yeah.
It's just live your life and I'll be here to capture it, and we can just put some takeaways, funny moments, whatever we find.
Yeah. Document, don't create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that.
What was the takeaway from the survey? Was that basically like just keep doing what you're doing?
I know. There wasn't. Well, I guess that's a good thing that there was no like, hey, like change this. It's so bad.
Yeah.
No, but the thing that was helpful for me was just the pattern in words. When people sent in, you know, what's the one word that you would describe him in? It was, you know, motivation, inspiration, which is great and helpful, but it's not telling me why, you know, like, why is he motivating? So the words that really helped were like determination, his grit, fortitude, courage, because those are all ultimately synonyms for each other. It's like, you know, fortitude is finding courage in times of adversity or obstacles, which is what he's done with all of his businesses. Like, he wanted to get his first sale for Marquis Jet, his private jet card company, but didn't know where to go to like find somebody who was wealthy enough to buy like a private jet card. So he decided to sit outside a TEDx conference that he had no credentials for and just sit in that cafe until like somebody came and sat with him. Like, it's like things where it's like he has the mental will to like withstand moments.
Yeah.
Whether it's like being with his kids or business endeavors or endurance. It was just finding that commonality in everyone's responses was really helpful.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, his account is great. Like, a post that just stands out from the last couple of weeks is when it's like freezing cold outside and he goes in the pool, you know, it's like a short or something like that. But I think you guys do a really great job of like taking these concepts of like grit, motivation or whatnot. And instead of talking about it, you guys, you know, like there's a big thing in marketing, like show, don't tell, you know, and you like, you're able to show it. And the fact that you're there, because like most entrepreneurs or influencers, like they don't have someone that's there, you know, to capture those things, you know, instead the fact that you're there and you're able to create these amazing pieces of content out of it. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, two more questions I have for you. First one is, what are the biggest takeaways you've had from Jesse? Or I guess the biggest lessons, the biggest transformations that you've had from the experience of working with him over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on this before, but just the belief in myself. Like, a takeaway is that he trusts people. Like, if you have that like gut feeling about, you know, the quality of a person or like he put so much trust in me, which makes me eager to hear people out and listen to what they have to say and find value in what other people say. And like, because of the way that he like found value in what I had to say, you know, that's one part. The other part is just how to prioritize yourself and your body and your interests. Like him doing those cold plunges and him, you know, eating healthy and working out. Like, it's that wasn't like a part of my like life routine, and now it is. Now I'm like, wow, how can I optimize how I'm feeling, because this is the one body that I've been put in on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Or like in terms of relationships, how kind him and Sarah are, like not only to just me, who, you know, they welcomed into their home, but everyone. Like there's people like they're, the presence that they give the people that they're with, like when they're truly there, is like, it feels like you're one-on-one with them. Like it feels very, yeah, present. And that's something that, like, not to overlook relationships that come in and out of your life.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, it goes back to that concept of like the life resume. Where I mean, I guess you could sum it up as like living a full life, right? It's like
Mhm.
people talk about balance all the time. Like they're kind of like the epitome of that, where they're able to like they have the success in their work, but then they're also, I mean, very healthy and they have great relationships and stuff. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I can speak from my experience, definitely striving for balance, not always there. Knowing that, like, sometimes maybe this is more of a priority than, you know, health, and knowing that, like, when you're not fully in balance, that's okay too. Um, but yeah, those are a few takeaways. There's a lot that I've learned that I'm really grateful for.
That's awesome. Before I ask my last question, if people want to check you out, oh, and we didn't talk about this, but you have some amazing merch as well. I guess you want to explain the concept of your fucking dope.
Yes. Um, yes, You're Fucking Dope is a project that I launched a year ago. And it really was a social experiment. Like, I didn't do it intending for it to turn into a business, or even to say that, like, I have, you know, merch that you can buy. But it started out as a gift. I made these stickers. I went to Burning Man, which is this amazing art and music festival camping experience in Nevada. And there's no money. There's no money. There's no bartering. You live there for a week, and you bring everything you need to survive, pretty much. But what you have to offer others, you have gifts. So, like, my gift to people were these stickers. I made these stickers so that anytime I had a great conversation with somebody, I could leave them with something tangible, which, as I'm saying that, I realized, like, that was what I wanted to do with the pitch too, right? Like,
Yeah.
anything that you could leave people with, because I feel like we live in this digital world. We're not often given things as, like, gifts anymore, as little things we can walk away with, mementos.
Yeah.
So I made these stickers that say "You're fucking dope," and it says "pass it on" in the corner, and I give one out. I give one to the person and give them two or three extras and say pass them on to other people you encounter that, you know, you had a great interaction with. And they were a hit. They really did well, and I was left with some leftovers after the event. And so I decided to carry it over in my regular life. I'll go to a restaurant, leave a tip, I'll leave the stickers. I see somebody with a cool jacket, I'll go up to them and be like, you know, hey, this is for you. And they'll look at it and, like, you know, "You're fucking dope" is a bold statement. That's like, that's pretty, like, you could say you're dope, but, like, "You're fucking dope," which is, like, you know, I didn't want it. It's not something explicit. Like, I didn't want it to be vulgar in using that word, you know, but it's there for emphasis, and people are like, "Holy shit, this is about me." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. And the goal with it now is just a way to connect people and strangers. It gives people an excuse to go up and talk to somebody new. Like, it might be intimidating. I know I've handed stickers out to people, like male and female, where I'm like, "Oh dang, that person looks cool. Like, maybe I want to have a conversation with them. I don't really know.
That's
Like,
such
how
a
do you
cool
approach
like
that?"
icebreaker, you know? It's
Exactly.
like
It's the
it gives you
icebreaker
an
being like,
excuse,
"Hey,
yeah.
this is for you." Exactly. And I, like, want to give people that reason to connect with each other. And so I put out this campaign on Instagram last year, just, like, made a little video and made it a pay as you wish concept. And honestly, it was because I didn't want to set up a website with, like, a Stripe thing. And, like, I was just like, let me fast track this and see,
Yeah.
like,
It's
how
very
much.
yes theory, like I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's pay as you wish, which means, like, however much you determine this worth to you. That wasn't grammatically correct. However money you have to offer, whatever you want to pay for it, just Venmo it and I'll send you.
Yeah.
You could send. I've gotten, you know, orders of 50 stickers for $2 or 2 stickers for $100. And it's fascinating
Yeah.
because it's like, it's up to the person on how much it's worth. And
Yeah.
I like, it really turned into this experiment where I get to see like inside people's minds of like where they value certain things
Yeah.
and where their interests are. And it's fun. Up to this point, I haven't like tried to scale it or anything, but that is something that I would like to try and put out there to more people because it's just such a fun concept. I've had like, you send them in the mail, you leave them places. It's like a little present.
Hey, they're coming to France, so it's
I'm
starting to
so
get big.
excited.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'll let you know
So
some of the stories that come out of it. I'm looking forward to it.
Want to know the best one is when you put the sticker on like your laptop or your water bottle or a notebook, and then somebody sees it in public and they're like, hey, that's really cool. I like that. And then you always have extras on hand so that you can whip them out and give them to the person. And then they're like, oh my God, like magic.
Yeah,
Like, are you kidding me? And it's just like creating those magic moments.
that's cool. I love it. I love it. Um, my last, I guess, where can people get those? And where can people find you online as well if you want to, if people want to follow you?
Yeah. I'm a friendly person. So if you want to follow me, it's at Amanda Mcwright.
And how
Pretty
do you
simple.
spell
It's just
that?
it's Amanda Mcwright, McCreight. And you can follow Your Fucking Dope. You can find it through my page. And in the link in bio, I have like a place where you can order the stickers. So pretty simple. My Venmo is on there if you want to order. But hey, you can DM me and I'll just send you them. I don't know. Like, it's as pay as you wish. It's whatever you want.
If you're dope, you'll get some.
Yeah.
uh,
So yeah.
cool. And my last question is, I guess what's what do you see? I mean, yeah, I guess what do you see the future being like for you? Like what are your dreams? What are your ambitions? And that's a big question.
What are my dreams and
I
what are my
the reason I ask,
ambitions?
I like to see. I mean, the I find that the people that go to work behind entrepreneurs and creators, they always, I mean, they're kind of like mini entrepreneurs of themselves. And I find that, um, I guess going to work for these people is kind of like an outlet for that entrepreneurial drive, you know? And yeah, so yeah, I'm curious I'm always curious to see. Usually they think big, so.
Oh yeah. I have so many ideas. I drive myself crazy with all the ideas because I'm like, where the heck do I even start? Um, what I really like about Your Fucking Dope, which I feel like is kind of like an intro to it, is that like a movement behind a product and the idea that it doesn't just live on the internet and it doesn't just live inside, you place it on a shelf in your house. It's almost like performance art.
Hmm.
Like it's something that you can take and interact with people in your daily lives, and that on a larger scale makes me so excited. Like if there's some way that I can make this even bigger, and it's all just like about positivity and interaction, and like you know it's hard because we are in like a generally lonely time of like the pandemic, or how easy it is to retreat to our phones and social media the second that we feel lonely. It's just trying to bring light to the fact that like, hey, deep down we all yearn to connect in the same way. Like I want to be seen just as much as you want to be seen.
Mm.
And so it's like I want to create something that makes people feel recognized and seen, and with a community around it. That's one thing. I want to make clothes, which is like exciting about the whole Yes Theory thing. Because that was like my first like actual like big collaboration with clothes. But like making my own, and like clothes are such like a signifier to others of like what you believe in and what you care about. And like I do a lot of collaging and art, and it's like vision, they're almost like vision boards. So that was my intention with like the pitch to Yes Theory. It's like you're wearing vision boards on your clothes, so it's not like you're just like talking the talk and like hanging it up in your house, which is good too.
You're
But
wearing
like
it, yeah.
you're speaking it into existence, you're walking it into existence. It becomes a conversation piece. So I think there's something there with that. And then in terms of like storytelling and documentation and visuals, I'm I'm obsessed with the idea of like watching a video and just feeling an emotion I wasn't feeling 2 minutes ago. Like I think that the power of that is amazing, which is nothing new. Like that's what we're all doing, right? Like
Yeah.
making something that makes, evokes emotion from people. But to come out with some sort of like short film or whether it's even like a commercial, like the Light Full of Color Yes Theory one, like that was powerful. Like to continue doing that and like finding my way along there. And I think something that I've done well so far is like not putting myself in a box of like, so far I have yet to apply to a single position because I'm like, okay, this is where I'll fit. I have like flowed and evolved my way into these places. And so although there's no clear like, oh, by 35, I'd like to be right here.
Yeah.
Like I just have this trust and this intuitive feeling of just like knowing I'm on the right path and I'll find my way there however possible.
Hell yeah. Hell yes. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be inspired by your story. So thanks for sharing it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. There you have it. I hope you got something out of this conversation. Let me know in the comments if you have any type of feedback whatsoever on how I can make this podcast more helpful, more valuable, more professional, as well as if you have any questions for me about how to reach out to a mentor or whatever you have on your mind. And if you have any questions for Amanda, drop that in the comments as well, and I'll have her check it out. Until next time, have an epic week.